Introduction to Cura. This video will be a live demonstration of Cura, a software application that prepares or slices a 3D model for a 3D printer. We'll look at the interface, opening a 3D design, resizing and rotating designs on the build plate, and other features such as adjusting layer height and adding supports. Finally, we will export the file for 3D printing. We're looking at Cura because it is a free program that has a very intuitive interface. It's made by the same company that manufactures our main 3D printers at the Idealab, the Ultimaker 2 Plus Connect. You can use this software with printers made by other manufacturers too. The software has a large user base and great documentation, so if you need guidance or troubleshooting, it's usually easy to find answers. When you open Cura, you'll see a large open space on the screen. This represents the build plate on the 3D printer. Across the top of the screen is the toolbar that lets you open a file, select the 3D printer you are using, and adjust print parameters. You can open a file by clicking on the folder icon in the toolbar or by going to File, Open File, in the menu. Cura can open a lot of different file types, but if you're loading your own design or one that you found in an online repository, such as Thingiverse, you'll typically be opening a .stl or .obj file. When we finish slicing our object, we'll be saving it in two different formats. We will cover those later in the tutorial. Once our design is loaded, it will appear in the center of the build plate. Here we can increase or decrease its size, rotate it on the build plate, and duplicate it to create multiple copies. When moving around the interface, it's helpful to learn a few different mouse actions that will make it much easier to navigate. Scrolling the mouse wheel will zoom in and out on the build plate. This doesn't change the size of the object, it just gives you a closer look. Holding down the right click while moving the mouse will rotate the build plate so that you can view the print from any angle. There are also shortcut buttons that let you jump to different views. Clicking and holding the scroll wheel while moving the mouse will let you move the build plate around. This is helpful when you are zoomed in on an object. When you select an object on the build plate with a left click, a toolbar will appear on the left side of the screen. This toolbar lets you manipulate the object. You can increase or decrease the size either by percentage or by typing in specific measurements. If you have uniform scaling selected, all of the dimensions will change accordingly. Turning this option off means you will only change the size on one axis. You can rotate the object by clicking and dragging on the colored ring associated with that axis. By default, it will snap to common angles such as 45 and 90 degrees. It is always best to rotate your design so that the largest, flattest surface is in contact with the build plate. By right-clicking on an object, you open a pop-up menu that lets you further manipulate the object. For instance, you can make additional copies of a design by choosing Multiply Selected. Specify the number of copies you want, and Cura will add them to the build plate. Now that our model is loaded and oriented correctly, we are ready to select the print parameters. The first thing we need to do is select our printer. In this case, we're using the Ultimaker 2 Plus Connect. Please note that printers from the same manufacturer, but with slightly different names, can act very differently, so it is crucial that you pick the right one. The name of the printer is displayed at the back of the build plate. We typically use generic PLA as the material in the Idealab, so make sure this is selected in the toolbar. At the end of the toolbar, you will see the print parameters. Clicking on it will open up additional parameters, including profiles for a variety of print qualities from draft to extra fine. But I will show you where to find the key settings for the parameters associated with the concepts that we looked at earlier in the 3D printing tutorial. The profile has a layer height of 0.15 millimeters, the same as the normal setting. Our design does not contain a huge amount of detail. There are no features nor parts that fit together like screws or inserts, so this level of resolution is fine. Under Infill, we can adjust the patterns and density. We'll take a closer look once it's sliced. I'm going to pick a different pattern, one called gyroid, that is good for adding strength to an object without adding too much to the duration of the printing. The default density is 15% in this profile, but we can increase it if we feel it's necessary. I'll increase it to 20%. Support. This design needs it. There's no way to orient the model so that it won't need support. If we use our right-click mouse shortcut to look underneath the model, we can see an area in red. This lets us know that this part of the design needs support. So we want to make sure we have Generate Support selected. With the Everywhere option selected, we know that there will be support added from the build plate to the bottom of the area needing support. Cura will also add any internal supports where needed. You'll remember from earlier in the tutorial that there are 3 types of adhesion: skirt, brim, and raft. A brim is useful for large objects, but for this model, a skirt is fine. This will draw a perimeter around the print and will get the filament flowing nicely before the print begins. Now we're ready to slice the design. Slicing the design is as simple as clicking on the Slice button. When the model is sliced, you will see estimates for the duration of the print and the amount of filament that will be used. As you saw, slicing doesn't take long, so if you're trying to reduce print times or see how adjusting different parameters will affect a print, it's easy to go in and try new things out. If the print time is too long for your booking, you have a few options. By reducing the size of the model, I can speed up the print time. By reducing the model to 75% of its size, I can save several hours. You may also see an effect by reducing the amount of infill. Increasing the layer height will reduce the resolution, but it will speed up my print time considerably. Once sliced, it is worth looking at the Preview tab to see what the initial layers look like. It helps to choose the color scheme, line type, as this helps you distinguish supports from the model itself. The slider on the right-hand side of the screen allows you to examine each layer of a print. It is really important to preview the design and ensure the model is touching the print bed. It is easy to knock a design off by a couple of degrees when rotating. The first layer looks good, as it is touching the build plate. As we go up through the layers, we can see the infill within the model and the supports. To finish, we need to save the file to a USB drive, which we can use in the printer. By default, it will be a .ufp file. This format contains both the G-code, the coordinates and instructions for the printer, and also a thumbnail preview. This file format can be read by the printer, but let's say that the print didn't work out well, and you need to tweak the settings. Will you remember what settings you selected? Perhaps not. That's why it's a good idea to also save your slice print as a .3mf project file. This file type can be reopened in Cura, so you can see what settings you chose last time and adjust it. Now that we have a file to print, we can save it to our USB, and we're ready to look at the next video covering the printer's operation.